One thing that we're going to see this year that's been different from previous years is that they've expanded the Best Picture nominee pool from 5 movies to 10 movies. Do you think that this change has been good, bad, or rad?
I'm going to say that the change has been bad, personally, because I think that the reason why we had the change was because The Dark Knight wasn't nominated last year, and this was kind of and the producers wanted to expand the range of nominees, and you kind of end up with this really just random assortment of films. Like, you have 2 war movies. One, The Hurt Locker, is very realistic. The other is kind of this ridiculous, revisionist fantasy, Inglourious Basterds, and you have The Blind Side and Precious.
I feel it's bad as well because it's really going to split the Oscar votes. And so you have the potential of getting a very mediocre film because it got a mediocre number of votes. An exceptional film that might be a little bit more controversial, like perhaps Precious, it's going to be, fingers crossed, it won't be, but it might be overlooked for something like that because it's a little bit more difficult of a film, and perhaps even something like The Blind Side would get more just because of the way the voting is set up. And I don't feel that's very good at all. I do think it's bad.
I think it has the potential to be definitely rad. With so many nominations, you have movies that people generally disrespect, like The Blind Side getting in, and people are upset that might taint the Oscars. But on the other hand, you have a lot of really interesting movies that would otherwise not be nominated for Best Picture, maybe Precious or An Education, that are very good movies and that people would usually overlook, now getting a chance to be in the spotlight.
Do you think that the idea that films that you consider not excellent, like the fact that mediocre films have been let in, like The Blind Side, for example, do you think that maybe you guys think they're mediocre, but the general public, they've gone to go see them more at the box office, so it's going to maybe bring more viewers to the Oscars themselves? Do you think that that is good, bad, or rad?
It's very Machiavellian. The Oscars is not a popularity contest in that respect. For that, you have to go to the Teen Choice Awards.
That's true. Teens do vote for those. Maybe you guys will agree that this year's biggest movie showdown is going to be between Catherine Bigelow's The Hurt Locker and James Cameron's Avatar, and these 2 directors are actually ex-husband and wife. What do you think about the rivalry, and is it good, bad, or rad?
The rivalry isn't really much of a rivalry in reality because they were, a couple years after they were divorced, they did a film together, so I don't think there's really any bad blood. But it seems like the rivalry is just between the Hurt Locker and the Avatar, the films themselves, because they're very different films. And Avatar, it was very expensive. It was like $300 million budget. Hurt Locker was about $10 million. And I think the conversation people should hopefully be having is whether Avatar is really worth that.
I think it's rad in that it is bringing more exposure to the race between those 2 films specifically. Not that Avatar needed any more publicity, but The Hurt Locker certainly did, and it's a beautiful film. And I think just as a woman and a woman director, it's great to see this sensitivity that's brought to a film like that, which I can't help but think that if James Cameron would have directed it, there would have been explosions and body parts flying everywhere. But there was this sensitivity in this film that's absolutely beautiful. So I think it is rad. It's bringing that attention to that film specifically.
It is disingenuous to manufacture controversy to publicize films. But in the Hurt Locker's case, I think it's very important because we haven't seen a lot of films about the Afghan or the Iraq War that have met both commercial and critical success.